Hi everybody, good evening and welcome to the 333 Premier webinar of HDFC Securities. I'm Payal Pandya from the Investment Advisory team, and the subject today is Indian gas sector, how it will be after the pandemic, what future we see therein. And to discuss this subject with us, we have Harshad, who has been tracking the sector for almost about 2 decades and has joined HDFC Security in Jan, before which he had his stint in Deutsche and UBS. Hi Harshad, welcome.
Thank you, Payal.
Harshad, I was just reading your report, and what I could really gather is the domestic gas sector, which remained almost flattish between FY17 to 20, is now expected to witness about a 17% CAGR, which is, I think,
Right.
40% absolute growth, right? And
Yes.
this growth is likely to be driven by three key things. One is the commissioning of long distance gas pipelines. The other is the city gas distribution, which is the CGDs, I guess.
That's right.
And the lower gas prices. And in the middle of all of this, while this sounds extremely positive for the sector, I was also reading an IBEF report which said that India is increasingly relying on import of LNG and is amongst the fourth largest importer. So how do we see that? Is it like we are going to import more, or is it that domestic, how do we understand this sector in the current time?
So let's break it into, I mean, you have asked quite a few things there. So let's just break it down. One is in terms of demand growing, and then how that will be supplied. So since the last time domestic supply grew, that was 2009, 2010, when Reliance started production from KG-D6, and over the next 2-3 years, that production started coming down. We have actually seen over the last 8 years, even if you take the last 5 years, the domestic supply has actually fallen by about 1% or so CAGR. And this has been made up by LNG. So the total demand has gone up, but domestic supply has come down, and LNG imports have gone up. So India's reliance on LNG imports have already started moving up as soon as the domestic supply started coming down in the early part of this decade. So LNG already contributes more than 50% of our total gas supply in the domestic market. And we see that continuing. So as demand continues to grow, we will have LNG supply also continuing. The key difference now compared to the last 4 or 5 years is the domestic supply, which we haven't seen for a long time. Over the next 3 to 4 years, we see domestic supply again increasing. We'll have production from Reliance's KG-D6 as well as from ONGC's field in KG Basin. So both these blocks should start producing, and that should take up the supply. So this is something different from what we have been seeing as a trend over the last 4 to 5 years. Now, on the demand side, what you mentioned, a couple of things. One is city gas distribution. We have had the 9th and the 10th round of city gas auctions. But that has, so in terms of how this will play out is the auctions have just happened. So it's going to take some time because it takes time to lay the pipelines, and over a period it starts going up. But in terms of the area that it covers, it's going to be a significant difference, say 5 years from now, compared to the last few years that we have seen in terms of city gas. And city gas is a steady business. It's in terms of household or industrial or even CNG, that's a steady business. So we see demand growing even on that side, as well as another point that you mentioned about the long distance pipeline. Again, after a long period, we are seeing quite a few of the long distance pipelines getting commissioned, like GAIL's Kochi-Mangalore pipeline, which is quite close to commissioning now. Also GAIL's Jagdishpur-Haldia pipeline. So these are the pipelines we've been waiting for some time now, and the key thing driving all this is the government's focus on gas. the government's intention to take gas to almost 13-14% of total consumption from as low as 6.2, 6.3% now. And what you're seeing on city gas, on long distance pipelines, all that is a culmination of the government's will to really push gas as a cleaner fuel.
Okay, that's quite interesting. But I was also thinking then that, like you mentioned, in that the allocations of the geographical areas in the ninth and 10th round have been very recent, and these are about 130 in all, 130 geographical areas. Now, if we assume, say, for a 4-5 year time to lay these pipelines and that much amount of investment and all, do you believe that it is going to be completed in the next 4-5 years, or it is something that could be a little longish period? And actually, after laying all these lines and it being functional, then is the real benefit going to come in? So with all these gas companies which have, which are not very much in the plus for cash flows, how are they going to sustain that duration until which they will really start making money out of these new 130 GAs? And what will change during this period? Is it going to be like a very long-term call for them, or is there going to be any other, plus point in between, and then that will effectively become a very long-term positive feature?
Right. So in terms of new areas, yes, it does take a long time. For example, for the 9th and 10th round, as per the bidding norms, they've been given 8 years to lay out the pipelines, but there are targets for each year. Usually first 1.5 years is the time which goes in authorizations, approvals. So not much work is done. So usually work starts after 1.5 years of the approvals coming through, in the sense the licenses being given to these players. But there are strict timelines, and I understand this time, even in terms of monitoring, it's much stricter compared to earlier times when the city licenses have been given. But there are strict timelines for each of the areas in terms of how much they have to commit or how much they have to connect in terms of households and the pipelines that they have to lay. So yes, it will take 5 to 8 years, but there have been the earlier areas. I mean, the three main areas we already know: Delhi, Mumbai, and Gujarat, where already we have listed companies in the city gas space and are growing quite well. So we do have the earlier areas which will keep on growing over this period, and which have been given over the earlier rounds. The 9th and 10th round is more in terms of indication of the seriousness of the government in terms of the number of cities that have been bid out and the interest shown by the gas companies. The other part is it's quite a lucrative business. If you see the financials of the listed city gas companies, Indraprastha Gas, Mahanagar Gas, or Gujarat Gas, or even Adani Gas for that matter. So all of these companies are profit making, have done well, very strong ROEs, 20% plus ROEs, and a steady business. So it's, I mean, in terms of capital, I don't see any issue. The model is proven, and high ROE business, strong earnings growth. It does take time to roll out, and the scalability does take time. And irrespective of whoever is the player or the promoter, it does take time, because you only get so much time during the year in any particular city to lay the pipelines, and you have to go to each house to connect. So it does take time. So it's a long-term structural story, but it doesn't mean that next 5 years nothing is going to happen. We are seeing growth in industry. We are seeing growth in industrial areas. We are seeing growth in CNG. Leave aside the COVID period, when CNG is taking some time to ramp back up to the earlier levels. But if you take this time off, if you remove FY21, you will see all the other areas growth is quite strong. So we don't really see any issue. Growth will continue.
Okay, that's but in any case, then of course, since you earlier mentioned that it is something that usually takes an 8 years, rather they are given an 8 years time, so we should look at it as a very lucrative business, but from an 8 year perspective.
Long term, yeah.
Long term, yeah, on an average 8 year perspective. I was also wondering, like you earlier mentioned about Reliance, the KG-D6. Now this KG-D6 came into existence in 2003, and then it peaked its production in 2011, right? If I'm not wrong, at 40 mmSCMD.
60.
After that, sorry, 60.
Okay.
After that, what happened that it suddenly dipped so much, and now what has been the correction, where we see correction in the sense that a corrective measure where we expect it to increase year on, and what went wrong in that period of after 2011 to now, and how is it changing?
Right. So it peaked at about 61 million SCMD, 60 plus billion SCMD. And now at this moment, it's not producing. So, but see, in any block, there are different fields. Now, the earlier fields, they are not going to restart production. These are new fields which will be put into production and should start now over the next 6 months or so. In fact, because of COVID, it has been delayed. Otherwise, the earlier timeline was around mid of this calendar year when the production would have started. So, in that sense, there were issues with the geology, and in any upstream project, geology is something which is not in your control, which there likely are surprises, and that was the first time deep water production was attempted or being done in India. So there were a lot of variables and not enough data. I mean, as they went along, they collected data. So it was the first time for anyone in India to really do that. So there were some issues in terms of well stabilization or sustaining of that production. So that actually, as I guess, would have helped them in terms of planning the production from the new wells that they have and what is coming up. So it will come up in 3 stages. So it's 3 groups of fields which will be put in production at 3 different levels. So first is expected by end of this fiscal, in the second half of this fiscal, FY21. And after 1 year each, there'll be another 2 groups of fields which will come up for production. So production will go up over a 3-year period. And anywhere, I mean, the peak will be anywhere close to 30 million SCMD. So that's again quite a substantial bit of production coming up from there.
That is hoping we don't come up with any hiccups there.
But this time, again, considering their experience last time, they should be much better prepared. And even BP is now in the fray in terms of looking at the data, helping out in terms of remedial measures, whatever will be required. So obviously, I mean, I expect that they will be much better prepared this time.
Okay, that's some relief to know, actually. Coming to CNG, okay, which is quite a talked about subject, okay. Now CNG apparently is used only in automobiles and all that. So how do we see CNG's growth from here on, considering that even in the auto sector, we are now talking about electric vehicles coming into the picture, and if you see a time 5 years hence, I think by the time we have CNG spread out across all regions, will also be the time where we would see a lot of infrastructure having built for electric vehicles as well. So how will these two compete is what I'm thinking, because I think CNG cannot really take a load of a heavy machine, a heavy vehicle, I would say, the engines. And at the same time, somebody who can afford an electric vehicle may not prefer CNG beyond a certain point. So how do you see that market going?
So it's not, I don't see it as CNG versus the electric vehicles. It's a vehicle can be either an electric vehicle or a CNG or petrol or diesel. So you have a mix of either of the fuels that you can use. Now the choice is going to be the customer's choice is going to depend on the initial capex, that is the cost of the vehicle, which at this point the electric vehicle is significantly more costlier than a similar type of internal combustion vehicle. The third is the cost of the fuel, which is more regular consumable kind of cost. Right now, petrol or a diesel is at the higher end in terms of cost, running cost of the vehicle, simply because of the, I mean, one big part is the taxes that are levied on diesel compared to CNG. So that arbitrage continues to exist, and I believe that will continue to be there for quite some time. So I do believe that CNG and electric vehicles will take some share from the petrol diesel vehicles. I don't think it will be electric vehicles taking share from, and these will coexist for quite some time. One is the infrastructure, and the other part is the cost that I mentioned. So it will be an interplay. As costs come down on the electric vehicle, it will become a lot more competitive compared to CNG or a petrol diesel. But the other part to keep in mind is, as electric vehicles globally become or take a larger share of vehicular population, the price of oil will also keep on coming down. So we can't compare, say, cost of an electric vehicle or running cost of an electric vehicle, or and say that when oil is at $60, this is very effective. But if oil stays at $30, then actually my view is longer term, if at all electric vehicles take a significant market share, then they will have to fend off oil at $30, $35, simply because that much of demand is taken away. So the pressure on oil is lower. So we'll have to compete with that, with the lower cost of a car, lower cost of a IC car. So that is something which will evolve. And at this point, the infrastructure is not really developed for the electric vehicles, so we'll have to see how that develops. But I do see a time where all three will coexist. It's easy. Compared to electric vehicles, it's easier for CNG, simply because you have pipelines, and now GAIL is laying pipelines, long distance pipelines. So many cities will be connected to that. And compared to petrol diesel, CNG is almost close to 50% cheaper. So anywhere from 40 to 50% cheaper. So it will evolve. So I think that EV and CNG will take some share from petrol and diesel. That's how we should see it, rather than EV against CNG.
Correct. So probably after 5 years, that's how the market will be. Petrol and diesel on one side and EV and CNG on the other, taking another half of the market, probably.
And the other part that you mentioned about heavy vehicles, now there, yes, it becomes an issue in terms of how big the tank needs to be to take the vehicle over longer distance without refilling. But Petronet is now not evaluating, but testing out using LNG directly for heavy vehicles. And this is something which is already being done in the US, where there are trucks which use LNG and fly over longer distances. So Petronet is going to try out. There is pilot project being worked on currently, and they're already trying it out at their facilities. So that is one option which will come into the play for longer distance heavy duty vehicles also.
Okay. Coming to Petronet, of course, there is something very interesting about Petronet is that it is owned by the 4 large Indian oil and gas, giants, and they are also on the board of the company. And interestingly, these 4 are actually almost the only customers, well, with a small amount going to the others, but so they are on the board, they hold the company, and they are the only customers. This is like very closely held. It's inside the company kind of a thing, structure. Everything is within the family. And what happens if one of these 4 giants have some hiccups in their business or whatever, some slowdown, then it brings down Petronet to a great risk, right? Almost 25%, assuming as of now that all four would have equal share of contribution or near about. My idea is, does this entail any kind of information that they are obviously privy to because they are their customers and as well as they are on the board? And at the same time, what happens if something goes wrong with one of them? What happens to Petronet if something goes wrong?
Right.
That is.
So let's look at how the Indian gas sector has evolved. By the nature of it, it's high capital intensive sector. So it's the PSUs which have been the long-standing. I mean, for example, if GAIL had not really put up that pipeline, or GAIL was actually set up to put up that pipeline, the HVJ pipeline, the first long-distance pipeline, no other private company would have really put that up, simply because first that pipeline needed to be put to give confidence to customers that they can actually start converting their plants to gas, because there is a regular availability of gas. So you needed somebody to put a asset which will actually start generating profits over a longer period, and that's the nature of the business, especially the long distance pipelines. Even Petronet, where I remember when Petronet was set up, there were a lot of reports at that time saying that Petronet will not really work, simply because the domestic price of gas was very cheap and no customer is going to take imported LNG, which is expensive. So I remember all of that. It's been a roaring success. I mean, you look at how many others have now come forward to put up pipelines or even LNG terminals. But at that time, in early 2000s, that time there was nobody else. I mean, Petronet was the only one doing that, and a lot of even some investors were not really giving them any benefit of doubt. I mean, it was almost said that it will make huge loss. It is not going to succeed. So you needed, I mean, and you can't get away from the fact that, for example, in terms of gas production, ONGC is the largest gas producer in India. That there is no way you can get away from that, nor the fact that GAIL, because it's been in this business for such a long time and has so many pipelines, it carries so much gas and has such a high market share. So, in fact, I would look at it from a positive point that all of these companies who have such a high stake in the sector are shareholders. And these are two separate businesses. In fact, the financial results of a GAIL does not really impact Petronet. They're completely two different entities in that sense. So the offtake is there. In fact, if you look at other, quite a few other LNG terminals, they are after these companies to make them long-term offtakers of their terminals, which Petronet actually had. So everybody is going after these because these companies have connect. For example, GAIL has connect with the customers. End of the day, even for Petronet, I mean, later on, if there are other long-distance pipeline companies or LNG importers who want to use Petronet's terminals, I'm sure, because it's a commercial agreement at the end of the day. So I'm sure Petronet will be eager to lease out their capacity to these players. It's just that there are just not that many players in India at this point, because market will take time to evolve, but slowly it will happen.
Okay, so that's what builds
I don't see
future for Petronet.
That's right. So Petronet, what Petronet has to look at is the long-term demand growth in India, and because of how the nature of market is, we just don't have enough domestic gas. So compared to the needs of the country or the customers in India, so LNG will remain an important part of this whole equation.
In case of this domestic gas, I think I saw it on one of the charts in your report. Over the last few months, the domestic household gas consumption actually reduced considerably. What could have caused that? I mean, if we consider pandemic effect, and which is why, the petrol diesel demand went down and everything, On the contrary, this should have gone up because everybody was locked in their homes. And what could have caused this? Is it also, going
Okay,
towards
so
electric appliances or what?
not really. So are you looking
No.
at from a monthly point of view? Are you looking at from a long term, or are you looking at from a percentage point of view? Because absolute number would have gone up. So as a percentage, it could have come down a bit because last few months we have seen, for example, power taking a lot of gas because gas price,
Okay.
LNG prices came down. So in terms of the mix, there would be a change, but in terms of absolute
Okay, so
number,
the
I don't
mix
think there is
only
a
has changed.
yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So, and that's more because one of the sectors has grown much faster than what it was growing at earlier, but not really on an absolute basis.
Not really an absolute decline.
And what you were saying is actually correct. That post COVID, after COVID has struck, in terms of absolute numbers, the growth has been stronger for domestic gas.
Okay.
Domestic gas, what I mean is in city gas, the gas used in households. So
correct.
that has gone up. If you look at monthly numbers, that has gone up.
All right. So in if we have to literally rank up all the people generating gas demand. So we have power sector at rank 1, which generates the highest gas demand. Then comes fertilizer. Then we have CGDs and refineries, and then petrochemicals. So how do we see the next few years for all of these going? Which of these do you think are going to have maximum growth, and which may have to go through some slowdown and then they will probably pick up, or whichever way?
Okay.
Or is there any cyclicity in any of these?
Okay, so just a small change there. Fertilizer continues to remain the largest sector in terms of gas.
Okay.
So power would be second, followed closely by city gas. Now, going ahead, say even if you take the next 5 years or so, FY20 to 25. Now you can take FY20 to 25, 21 to 25, depending on what anybody wants to prove in terms of the numbers. But in terms of the trend, we see power picking up, or power growth to be much faster than the other sectors, simply because LNG prices have come up. And power is the most price sensitive of the sectors in terms of demand. So it's simply because it competes with coal in terms of alternate fuels, whereas in other sectors, for example, in fertilizer, the comparison with naphtha, which is oil-based and which prices are already high. So whenever oil price falls, you will see a sharp jump in consumption or demand from power, and which is what is happening now, and we expect that to continue for some time. Because of global LNG growth having come out because of COVID, as well as the supply has been quite, supply increase, capacity increase has been quite sharp, especially in 2019, global LNG supply. City gas will be more a steady growth as expansions happen, new areas come under city gas, so you will see that happening. So city gas and fertilizer will be steady growth. Fertilizer, we see over the next 1 year or so, we see again a jump in demand because of GAIL's Jagdishpur Haldia pipeline. That will connect, I think, if I remember correctly, about 4 fertilizer plants which will start consuming gas. So it will be, fertilizer will be more like a step function. As a new plant is connected, you will see a jump in demand. But power will be steady, and power right now we are going through a phase where because industrial activity is low because of the COVID issue, I believe the demand is slightly on the lower side. So as that picks up, you will see again growth.
A considerable growth there.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So both. So you will have on the demand side too. Plus, because the LNG cost is lower and competitive with alternate fuels, you will see more shifting, which has already started. It's not as a so it's already started, but that will be.
Okay.
So power will be number one in terms of growth, and followed by refineries will be another one as new refineries get connected to the long distance pipelines and capacity expansions happen on the refinery side. So that will be another in terms of incremental growth, absolute growth. That should be. So these four sectors is what you should. The nature
Power,
and dynamics are
refinery,
slightly different.
fertilizer, and CGD.
And CGD, yes, these are the main ones.
So what would be your top picks then? Something from a mid-term perspective, or not mid, I would say actually something that we should look at from say a 2-3 years perspective, and so that is also a long term, and something very long term like 8-10 years perspective. Since
So
CGDs of course will take time, so I'm assuming
yes.
they would lie in the 8-10 years kind of a.
So okay, so the way we see it now is what is changing is the domestic gas supply. And a big benefit of that, so one is on one hand domestic gas supply, and as LNG prices stay low, even that supply continues. So it's the supply increase or no constraint on the supply side. That should benefit the transmission companies after a long period. So GAIL and GSPL, Gujarat State Petronet, these would be our top picks in the sector at this point from a 2 to 3 year perspective. So there is supply side coming into the picture as more supply comes in, plus some of the long distance pipelines getting commissioned, so which should benefit both of these companies. So that is one, and valuations are attractive. In the gas utility space, these are the ones trading at the lower band of the range. City Gas, because of the nature of business, high ROEs, that continues to trade at a higher multiple. We do believe there is long-term potential, even growth in City Gas. But in City Gas, the one thing we are awaiting is the regulators' open access guidelines. So which has created some uncertainty in the sector in the short term. So we would take, so we do like the business, but we do believe that there could be overhang and some uncertainty on the stock prices because of the expected guidelines which are likely to be released anytime now. In fact, the regulator earlier had said in August itself, but within the next few weeks that could come out. So that would take away the uncertainty, and that should then be a good time to, but we like all the gas utility because we are looking at next 5 to 10 years as a structural growth for all of these companies. It's more a question of the pecking order rather than which we don't like or like. We like all the businesses, but we like GAIL and GSPL more in amongst the gas utilities. And Petronet is another one which we like more from a say 1 year perspective, because as GAIL's pipeline also gets connected, its Kochi terminal utilization will start increasing, as well as there is growth from the Dahej terminal too. So in terms of pecking order, right now we would put the gas transmission utilities first, GAIL and GSPL, followed by Petronet, and then City Gas.
Okay, that's very insightful, Harshad. I think I'm sure all of the listeners also have got quite a bit of understanding of the current gas sector and what they should expect going ahead in the next few years. Thanks a lot for this discussion, and thanks everyone for joining us on this call. Have a nice weekend.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on the call. So